Hello and welcome to this simple daily health journal Excel template tutorial. In this video, I've got two goals in mind and I'm excited to tackle them with you. First, we'll get to know this template, how it works, what it does, and the cool features it includes. Second, we'll build the entire template from scratch, step by step, so you can follow along and create it yourself. You'll find a free download link for the finished template in the description below. Feel free to pause, rewind, or replay this video as much as you need. My goal is to help you not just learn how to build this template, but also to pick up some handy Excel functions along the way. But before we dive in, let me give you a quick tour of what we're about to create. This template is a simple daily health journal designed with a 4-week calendar and two sections: a metrics section here with space for 5 metrics, and a daily habits section with room for up to 15 daily habits or tasks. Here on the left, you'll define your metrics, habits, and goals, and you'll track them by either entering the value for each day for your metrics or by marking each day you complete them for your habits. One more cool feature: you only need to set the start date here at the top, and the calendar updates automatically. To make it more user friendly, I've created two versions of this template: one with dropdowns, like this, as well as one with checkboxes, which is the one you were seeing filled out for an example. So this is the checkbox version, and this is the dropdown version. Feel free to use whichever works best for you, but just a heads up, these type of checkboxes that you're seeing right now were introduced in Excel as of June 2024, so please double check that your version supports them. Now that we've covered the basics, let's dive straight into the good stuff. Let's go over how to use this template. Step 1 is for you to define your start date in your local date format. The field will highlight in yellow if it's empty, prompting you to enter a value. Once you've entered a date, like this, you can see that the calendar and the end date will be updated automatically. So this is the end date and this is your calendar at the top. Step 2 is for you to define your metrics, here on the left. You will first list your metrics and habits on column B. For metrics, you will use rows 11 to 15. And for habits, you will use rows 18 to 32. Next, you will specify your weekly goals, either the target daily value for your metrics, or in the case of habits, the number of days you aim to complete each one of them, both in column C, right next to the corresponding metric or habit that you have defined. Then step 3 is for you to track your daily progress. For your metrics, you will simply enter the value for each metric on the corresponding row and column. For habits, tracking depends on the version. For the drop-down version, so this one, you will simply select a check mark from the drop-down each time you have completed a habit. And as you can see for the checkbox version, you will simply click on the checkbox whenever you have completed a habit. Note that for habits, empty cells are treated as no completion, which is the same as using the dash value from the dropdown in the dropdown version. One bonus cool feature is that you can enable the show color coding feature to highlight the tracker cells in green whenever a metric has reached its target or whenever a habit was marked as completed. You will activate that by entering true in cell C8 or in the checkbox version by just clicking on the checkbox provided on that same cell. You can see that whenever I haven't met my target, in this case for sleep hours, it's not highlighted in green. If I moved it to say 6, you can see that now 6 is highlighted, but not the case for 5 and not in the case of 4. For habits, as I mentioned, as long as you click on a completion, it will be highlighted. And now for the main event, let's dive into the step-by-step guide to building this template from scratch. For this template, we'll break the creation process into 6 main sections. We'll first create the calendar panel, so this on the top, then the metrics panel, followed by the habits panel. Then we'll move into the tracker section, so the matrix you have on the right. Then we'll do the color coding functionality. And finally, we'll convert this drop-down version into the checkbox version. In each section, we'll handle all the necessary cell values, formulas, and formatting step by step. To make things easier, I recommend using the exact same cells and formulas as I do. This way, you can always compare your version against mine and quickly spot any differences if you run into issues. And remember, feel free to pause, rewind, or replay this video as much as you need. Let's begin. As you can see, I have three templates: Health Journal, the Health Journal Checkbox version, and then an example version. I'll start by creating a new blank worksheet. I'll now rename this worksheet. I just right-clicked on the Sheet 1 name, then click Rename, and then we'll call it Tutorial Version. I'm going to keep these other worksheets available for us to go back and see what we're aiming at, and then come back and do it here. So first, let's start with the calendar. As you can see, we started on cell B6. So that's when I'm going to start putting these parameters: start date, end date, then these two date fields. And then for now, I'm just going to add this label as is, and this will be remaining empty. So let's do that. I'm going to go to B6, start date, end date, and show color coding. Then I'm going to change the width by right-clicking on the top here in columns. And then on column width, I'm going to use 21, which will vary depending on which units you have predefined for that menu. Then I'm going to do these 14. Oops, sorry. And then I'm going to do this one very narrow, 1.56. There you go. Then I'm going to change the color for the background here. Notice that I have this color pattern pre-selected, and that's because when I started this file, I went to page layout, then I did colors, and then I just click on this blue color here. But you can choose whichever you want. It won't match exactly against mine. But once you create this blue version as well, you can change it to whichever other pattern you like, and the change will be very quickly to make. So let's keep the blue one. So I'm going to click this blue, and then I'm going to click this white for the font, and I'm going to bold this one, and I'm going to add some borders. In this case, I'll add a white border. So first I go to Home, and then here on Borders, and then Line Color, I select white. And then you can see that a little pencil appears, but I'm just going to click here again, and I'm going to say All Borders. And finally, I'm just going to center the alignment for the cell. Then I'm going to copy the cell, and I'm going to paste only the format. Now for the show color coding, I'm going to italize it. Then I'm going to select a blue font. Then I'm going to do bold. Actually, it was a darker one. And then I need to go again to add a border. But now this time I'm going to add a gray border. And then I select, again, all borders. And there you go. Now for these three, right now, the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add their borders, clicking on all borders, so that we can move on, and we'll come back to this later. Now let's do the calendar panel. First thing, I'm going to add this same width to this column, which I just copied the column A, cell A5, A6, sorry, it doesn't matter which row. And then I'm going to do Ctrl-Alt-V, and I'm going to select only column width, and then I'm going to click OK. With that simple trick, you can copy widths into any column very quickly. And I'm going to do the same for E. Now for the panel, we need three things. We'll need something saying week 1 or week whatever it is. Then the name of the day, such as Monday, Tuesday, Friday. And then the number of the day. What we'll do is we'll do this following. First, let's specify today's date, just that we have a value. Obviously, this will differ depending on which day you do this exercise. And then the next thing is we'll copy that with a formula. We'll do equals on F7 to cell C6. And we'll do the same, but now for F8. Now I have both dates here, but I don't have what I want because it's just a matter of formatting. So what I'll do is I go here into date, and then I'll go to more number formats, and then I'll go to custom. And then in custom, you can see that if I specify something here, for example, D and D, you see the sample here at the top based on what you have specified. If I click 3Ds, you'll see the abbreviation for Wednesday. And if I click 4Ds, it'll say entire name of the day, Wednesday, with all its letters. So I'll leave 3Ds for the top. And then here, I'm going to go to custom again. And I'll just leave 2Ds for the name. Sorry, for the number. And there you go. Now, the way we do the other days is basically we just do a trick. We have the exact same format. So we can use this format painter and then copy into the next one and do the same with this one. That way, whenever I click on this format cell, you can see that it's already double D for column G, row 8. And then here, it's already the 3Ds for row 7. And now what I'm going to do is, since these are consecutive days, I'm just going to do equals this date on F7 plus 1. And do the same here at the bottom. I can do special paste and then just copy the formulas, or you can type it. And now I just have to copy these dates all the way to the end of week 4 in this template. But before I do that, let's just reduce the column width for these two. I'm going to go with 5.33. And this is completely arbitrary. I just like the width, but you can choose whichever you want. And then I'm going to do the same here. Remember, Ctrl-Alt-V and then widths. And once I've done that, I can just simply copy these and then copy them all the way till the end of week 4, which is going to be column AG. So I'll do two things. I'll do first the widths, then the formulas, and then finally the formats. And there you go. Now another thing we need to do is this week 1 only covers obviously 7 days. So we'll now need to input week 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to manually change these names. And once I have this, it's just a matter of formatting now. So first thing that you notice if we come back to the example is we have alternating colors for the weeks, for the names of the days, as well as for the number of the days. So let's do that first, week 1. So week 1 seems to be this color and a white font. Now for Wednesday, seems like it's this darker green, again, white font. And then for the number, It's the middle gray here. Now we just need to do Thursday now, which is a lighter green. And then the number as well, which is just a lighter gray. And once we have that, we can just copy these two and then essentially copy the formats. And see that because I copied two columns, then the format is also paid in two columns right next to that. If I now selected these four, it's going to paste 4 times that. And again, if I select the entire thing, it's going to paste 8 times that. So now that I have 2 weeks complete, let's copy 2 weeks. One thing I was missing is to center align this. And now you have your days with number and with name. Now, what you can see for weeks is that it's a complete cell. It's called a merge cell. It goes from columns F to L and then only row 6. So the easiest thing to do this is for me to say, I just want this entire thing, select it, and then merge the cells. And now I have everything merged. Now I could do the same thing for week 3 because it matches the same color. But for week 2, I still have to do 2 things. I first need to change the color in the background, which is a lighter version. And then the other thing is to add the borders for everything else. So let's copy these week 2 into week 4. And remember, if you just click Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V, you'll change the name and then you have to rewrite it, but it's not a big deal. Then once I have this, I select the entire thing and then go to the borders again, line color, white, and then all borders. And it's looking very similar, except for one thing. You can see that at the end of each week, I have a slightly thicker border. So what I need to do is I need to select these, then go again to the border, but now this time change the line style. So I'm going to select this thicker border, and then instead of everything, I'm just going to go with the right border. And as you can see, it now matches. Again, thick border, again, and again. Now that I'm coming back to this example, I see that we have 2 things that are different. First one is I bolded these 4. So the week names, just need to add the bold. And then for the numbers, I need to take out one of the D's that we added because it's adding a leading 0 for those numbers that are only 1 digit. And there you go. Now for the end date, this will update automatically, and the only thing we need to do is to select the value at the end. So equals AG8. And now we need to change the format. So the format is like this one. We just need to center it, and then we'll copy the format. By the way, to copy formats, you can also click this Format Painter. So you click Format Painter, and now that it's copied, you just select the destination where you would want to paste that format. And I have actually added that as a shortcut at the top. So I can just click on Alt-1, and that's my functionality for Format Painter, and then just select the destination. And just to indicate that this should not be changed, I will add a gray color. And you can see that it's pretty much all we have to do for the dates panel. I mean, we're missing the show color coding functionality, but we'll come to that later. Next, let's go to metrics. So on B10, I'm going to add the text health metrics. And then in parentheses, I'm just going to specify target value so that we remember that in column C, we need to specify that target value. And now just to fill out everything, I'm going to copy the values, but you can type them manually. And so this is the result of typing every single thing manually. And two things I have to do. I need to add formatting for the header and formatting for the panel. One little trick we'll do is we'll use this format. So I'm going to copy and paste the format with the format painter functionality. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this cell. And then I'm going to merge these two. And then for the rest, I'm actually going to copy these. But after doing that, I'm just going to select here and put general. And then I'm going to copy these again with the format painter functionality into the rest. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for the numbers. So select the entire selection and then copy to the numbers. Now let's move to the habits, which is going to be very similar. First thing we'll do is we're going to do health habits here for the header on row B17. And then I need to specify in parentheses the number of days per week so that I remember that this is my target. Then I can actually copy this entire format because it's going to be the same one into this cell. And then I can actually borrow this format as well for each one of the following rows. So I just copied the format here for now into the first row. And what I'm going to do is for reference, I'm just going to copy the entire values here as values, which is the same as typing them. And then I'm going to copy the entire format and paste it all the way to row 32. You don't have to type the values. You can just copy the format all the way to row 32 and that will do it. But this way, you can see that everything is centered and then everything is exactly the same as my example. Now let's do the tracker or the matrix here on the right, where you will track your metrics and habits each day of the 4 weeks you have specified. First, we're going to do a simple trick here at the top. So for this type of separation panel or separation border, you see that it doesn't have anything. It's just formatting. So I'm going to copy this entire week, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to copy only the formats. Again, I did Alt-1 because that's my shortcut for the Format Painter functionality, where you can always select and click here on Format Painter. And then I'm going to click on this row 10. And then I'm actually just going to change the background color to this darker blue. And now that I have that, I can actually copy, Control Copy, and then Control Paste, Control V. And now I have my two separations. And next, I'm going to copy these, only the format. And then I'm going to copy it into the entire region. So all the way to AG15, starting on F11. Or what you can also do is you can copy these and then just do a Shift, click, then Control Alt V, and then copy the formats and then hit OK. It's going to be the exact same thing. And now the only thing that's different is that this border is also thicker for the end of the weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and then I'm just going to change the style. Select the thicker. Oh, it was already there. So I'm just going to change the color. Select the gray. And then since we already have the right border selected here, I'm just going to click it. And there you go. And I'm going to do the same here. Just click. And the same here. And let's see if the yes also for week 4 is necessary, just to match my example. I mean, feel free to change the format if you like a different one. And now I'm going to just copy the exact same thing into the rows of the health habits. So I select the entire row 11. Then I click on F18, and then I'm gonna click Shift, and then I'm gonna click on cell AG32. Whoops, AG32. Once I have that selected, I will hit Ctrl-Alt-V, Formats, and then you can hit Enter or just click OK. And now it's done. Now we're starting on the drop-down version. And then from there, we'll do the checkbox version. So one thing we're missing is the drop-downs here. Let's add them. To add drop-downs in Excel, all you need to do is to go to Data in your ribbon, then hit on Data Validation, and then here you will specify a list. So whatever values you put on source, let's say value 1, then test, and then A27, for example. Hit OK. You can see that this arrow appears now when I select cell F18, which is where I added my validation. If I select another one, no arrow appears. And then when I click the arrow, you can see that the values that I specified, comma separated, value 1, test, and A27 are now found here. And if I try to add something else, like hello, Excel will bring up an error saying that the value that I have specified doesn't match the data validation parameters defined. You can change that if you go to data validation, and then you can just add, for example, the hello value, and now you can have it. You can change actually the error alert that appears, and you can do some other things which are not really relevant for this tutorial. But what I want to do is I want to add a check mark and a dash value here. Now, how do you get a check mark in Excel? What I like doing is the following. Since you cannot really type a check mark with your keyboard, what I like doing in Excel is entering a formula. So equals unichar, and then the value specified here is going to be 10,003. Because that is the value in the system that is equivalent to the check mark. After that, I'm going to do copy, then paste as value. And now if I click on the text, you can see that it's no longer a formula. It's already the value of the checkmark. That is then modified to match the font that I have, which in my case is just the default, Aptos Narrow. So I have just copied by entering the cell, then selecting the value and then Control Copy or Control C. I have now the value in the clipboard of the checkmark. So all I have to do is go again. For now, I'll just delete first this. Data validation, clear all. And then I'm going to select the entire range. And then I'm going to go again to data validation. Then the list. And then here in source, I'm going to go with my Control V, which is going to paste my checkmark. Then I'm going to add comma. And then I'm just going to add a dash, a minus sign, to indicate the no completion, which is going to be the same if you just leave it empty. Hit OK. And now every single cell in my tracker matrix is going to have a drop down, which when prompted is going to show me the check mark as well as the dash. There you go. Now you don't need to keep this value here. It was just for me to actually copy the check mark so you can delete it afterwards. Now before moving into the show color coding functionality, let me just add one thing here in the start date. Since this is the input that is required for the entire panel to be updated, I'm just going to go to Home, Conditional Formatting, Highlight, and then for now, I'm just going to put equal to 0. And then the important thing is to select the yellow. I mean, you can also use the red, but I prefer the yellow. Then hit OK. And then still with that cell selected, I'm going to go back to Conditional Formatting, Manage Rules, and then here is going to appear the list of every single rule that you have for conditional formatting in this selection or in this worksheet. For now, I have just added this one. What I'm going to change now is I'm going to select this rule, edit, and then format only cells that contain blanks. So now, if I hit OK, and then apply, and then OK, and if I delete this value, it's now going to be prompting me to specify one. As soon as I have specified it, you can see that your panel updates. What if I use this for, say, January 1st of 2025? It now starts in January 1st and then goes all the way 4 weeks later into January 28th. Note that whatever value you specify here is going to always match the first column, in this case column F. If you want this column to be a Monday, you need to specify a Monday value here. For example, January 6th. Now my value is a Monday. Let's go back to today's formula, which just returns the value of what day is today. And by the way, if you leave the value here with the formula, every time you open the file in a new date, it will be updated. So if you don't want that to change, you should just leave the value as is. So copy and then paste as value, for example. And then now, if I double click here, it's specifying November 27. Let's now do the show color coding functionality. So two things need to be done here. First, if you go to the example that we are using, you can see that there's a dropdown with true false. So let's first add that one. Again, data, validation, and then a list, and true, comma, false. Hit OK. There you go. And now what I'm missing is the actual formatting for these cells. So when I activate this, for example, I click true, I want these values to be highlighted accordingly based on my target value specified. So how do we do that? First, just for you to be able to see what I'm doing, I'm going to copy these values just as values. So I hit Control C, then Control Alt V, values, OK. And then that way we'll see if this is actually working. What I'm going to do is, you probably guessed it, I'm going to add a conditional formatting rule. So what we'll do is we'll select the entire range. Then we'll do conditional formatting. And then we can do two things. We can do new rule, or we can go to manage rules and then click new rule. It's going to be the same thing. Now I'm going to use a formula. So this last option. And this is where I will put the formula that I need for this to work. But after I put the formula, I then need to specify a format, which prompts me to the font, type, color, the border, the field. So I'm pretty lazy and I don't like doing that. So I'm going to do one thing that's easier. I'm actually going to do with one of the presets, and I'm just going to put for now greater than 0, which is the first option. And the green, which is the one that I'm interested in. This is the color that I want to match, and it's the one that I used for the example. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to go back to conditional formatting, manage rules. And then what you can see is that I need to change this, which is the formula that's going to be applied. Right now it's just saying the cell value larger than 0. But now the advantage of having doing that is that the format is already predefined for me because it was a predefined format. So I click on edit. And then if I go to format, you can see that the fill and the font are both already in the values that I want. And I didn't have to do anything. So what I'm going to change is I'm going to do use a formula. And I'm going to input the following formula. I want to put two conditions. So that's what I put the nth. First condition is I want my cell, so F11. We always start with the first one, and then depending on how you use the $sign, it will be updated automatically. I'm going to explain it in a bit. I'm going to do F11, so first value, 7, has to be larger or equal to C11. So C11 is my mental health target value, 8. And That's the first condition. And now the second condition is that C8, so C8, my show color coding functionality, needs to be activated, so it needs to be equals to true. Now, first thing we need to add is the dollar to C11, but only the C. Dollar means that the reference will be kept across your range. So what this is doing is we're applying a formula to an entire range, in this case F11 to AG15. So that means that for every single cell in that range, this formula is going to be dragged to the right and down. If we're dragging the formula, what we need to be keeping without modifying is the reference to my target value, so the column C, but only the column because the row needs to be modified whenever we drag the formula down. So we add $sign to column C to be kept as reference, a fixed reference. Then row 11 doesn't need that. Same for F11. As we drag the formula to the right and down, this F11 will change to whatever cell is now being applied to. And finally, C8 is going to be kept frozen, both C as well as 8, because it doesn't matter which formula we are evaluating, it doesn't matter which cell we are evaluating, the formula will always compare that in C8 the value is true. And this nth condition is just evaluating two things. It's evaluating my first condition, comma, second condition, and only if both are true. So only if F11, so each value, is larger than or equal to my target, and only if I have turned on my show color coding functionality, then will this color be applied to those cells. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to do apply. I'm going to do OK again. And now see that 7 is no longer colored because it's not greater than or equal to 8. Same for 6, for example. Same for the case here of 5 hours of sleep against the target of 6. So if I change it to, say, 10, it's now going to be colored. And if I change this to two things, either blank or false, nothing will be colored. Now we're going to do a similar thing on the next range. So first I select the entire range. I go again to conditional formatting. I go to highlight, greater than, 0, and this I'm just doing so that I already have the formatting done for me. And then the next thing is I'm going to actually edit that rule because right now it's not helping me at all. Edit. Again, use a formula. And then the formula is going to be very similar. We have two conditions. First condition is the same one. So condition number 2 for the true value on cell C8 is exactly the same. But now for the first one, I don't need any of these values to be greater than or equal to this. I just need them to be a check mark. So my formula is going to be, again, nth, two conditions. Second condition is the same. But now what I'm doing is cell F18 without any fixed references has to be equal to the value of the check mark. And since this is text, I need to specify the double quotes. So F18 equals quotes my value, which is a check mark, and then we close the quotes, then comma to separate the second condition, and the second condition is the same. We just need this to be true. Then we click OK, and remember, C8 is fixed, and in this case, F18, again, is not fixed because it's going to be applied to every single cell as we drag the formula right and down, and then click OK, apply, OK, and then select this random cell just to test it out. And there you have it. Every time I click a check mark, I'm just going to copy the value. You can see that it's green. And then if it's empty or false, or what happens if none of these are check marks, you can see that now the color coding is applied correctly. Now let me delete these values. And I'm also going to delete these values. And you can see that It's exactly the same except for these specify habits, which I didn't have on my health journal drop-down version. And then one last thing before we go to the checkboxes version, I like using just a gray color background for every single other cell. So I'm just going to add that background by selecting the ranges and then doing the light gray, and then doing that same thing for every single cell. I'm going to speed up this. And once I have that, I also like doing view and then hiding the grid lines. That way it's much cleaner. There you go. And so lastly, what we're doing is we're creating the checkbox version. So first thing you'll do is you'll copy this worksheet. You can do two things. You can right click on the tab and then do move or copy. Then move to the end and then make sure you check on these create a copy. Other way, you're just going to move the tab to the end. Then hit OK. And then you can see that Excel created a tutorial version and then in parentheses number 2, and that is a copy. The other thing you can do is you can select your original tab, then hit Control in your keyboard, and then left click on the mouse. And then as soon as you start dragging it, you'll notice that that arrow is selecting where it will be dropped, and then your mouse has some type of page on it. When you drop it there, it will create a copy. If you don't select control, you will just move the tab around, but will not create a copy. Either way works. So I'm just gonna delete this one for now. And then I'm gonna rename this. And then I'm gonna put checkbox. Now, just so that it looks exactly the same, I'm gonna copy these. Which, by the way, this one just says what you need to do, which is setting the start date on the value for the value of cell C6. And then I think there's another thing that I need just to adjust, which is this width, which is the same which is gonna match the width of column A. So I'm gonna copy these. And then I'm gonna do the entire thing for simplicity. And then I'm gonna go do A1, and then I'm gonna do two things: width first, and then everything else. And the everything else, I just clicked Control V. Now these two match my example for dropdowns. So how do we create the checkboxes? Checkboxes were introduced in June 2024. So check that whenever you have your ribbon, go to Insert, this checkbox appears here. If it doesn't appear, it means that you don't have the same version that I'm using right now and you won't be able to do these changes. And if you download this template, this will be filled with errors because it won't know what to do with the checkboxes. So, having said that, how do we create them? First thing, I'm gonna delete the data validation here. Select the entire range, go to data validation, and then clear all. Okay. And then it's as easy as just going to insert and then hitting checkbox. And there you go. And one thing I like doing is just changing the font color to a bit of a shade of gray. And then the other thing we need to do is to do the same here. We go to data validation, then clear all, and then insert a checkbox, and then change the font. Now, what you can see is that I can click on the checkboxes, but the green color is not working. So in addition to adding the checkboxes, I also need to change the data value, the conditional formatting. I go to Manage Rules, and I just really need to select one of these cells in the entire range for the rule to appear. Once the rule's here, I will go to Edit Rule, and then instead of saying F18 equals the check mark, I just need to say that F18 equals true. Because the way check marks work is that whenever it's checked, the actual value of the cell is true. So as you can see that if I hover, it says true. If I hover on the empty one, it says false. So Excel knows that whenever a checkbox is checked, the value is true, and whenever it's not checked, the value is false. You can delete these now. And then let's see that this works. There you go. Because this second condition was already saying that this needs to be true. And this was already true as soon as I just selected it. And then one more thing, actually, that I was forgetting. If you see this example, this also turns green whenever it's checked. So there's an additional conditional formatting here that's kicking in. So I need to go here, conditional formatting. We're going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to do greater than 0, greater than 0. And then I'm going to click on green. And then here, I'm going to do manage rules. And then edit. And then we can do two things here. We can do cell value equal to, and then just say true. Or we can add a formula and then say when C8 equals true. It's going to be the exact same thing. And now I do control copy. And for this, I'm going to do format. And I'm going to put my checkbox again. And there you go. One cool thing about checkboxes as well is that to select or unselect, you can hit the spacebar. And that will make it super easy to, for example, delete a list with checkboxes or any form that you have created that contains any checkboxes that you want to unselect. And now I think, oh, the only thing that's missing is this color as well. And there you go. These two match. The only thing that's different is that this is a slightly lighter shade of gray. So we can change that. And I'm just being super picky so that they match exactly. And we'll change this one as well. And we can copy these so that nothing pops out when we're shifting and comparing. So we have the drop-down version and then the checkbox version. And we have completed now. And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or drop a comment below to let me know what you think. If you're into Excel and want to learn more, consider subscribing to my channel. I'll be posting more tutorials and courses to help you level up your spreadsheet skills and create awesome templates and tools. And hey, if you're in the hunt for more productivity and planning tools, check out my store. The link's in the description. Until next time, stay productive, stay awesome.